Hello, Denise here of Diva Pilates and Wellness. This is day number 21 of the Health and Wellness 30-day video challenge. Day number 21. Today also happens to be part 2 of our fibroid series, and today we're going to deal with the aspect of food and other things that cause fibroids to grow. But before we get into that, let's look at exactly what a fibroid is. There are three types of fibroids, and I've had all three of them, so I can actually tell you I know what they are. But just so that I get it right, I'm going to read it. The first one is called the subserous uterine fibroid, located on the uterine surface, basically on the outside of the uterus, and that's definitely one I've had quite a few of those located like that. Even after I had the first surgery and they shrunk, they grew back. That's where they were. Then there was the intramuscular. These are inside the uterine muscle. So they're more the ones that don't cause them as many problems. Basically, they're almost protected in there. And then the submucous. These are inside the uterine cavity. Now, the ones that I had on the outside of the uterus, those are the ones that caused me the most problem, and I believe that caused me the most pain. But they all grew to sizes that were definitely astronomical, and they can start out small like a pea, but they'll grow large over time. Some of them grow slower than others. Some grow very rapidly, and others grow a lot slower. And they're shaped either like a oval or they're round, and they have stems, and they're made up of muscle tissue, and they can be hard, and then they may have, in certain areas, they may be soft, and they all have these stems, which is where they get their blood supply of. And so that whatever we eat, it goes and feeds directly into that into that fibroid. Excuse me. So this is pretty much the anatomy of a fibroid. Of course, I'm not going deep into it because, like a doctor, because we will be here for hours discussing the actual anatomy of it. But that's the basic anatomy of the fibroid. When I had my first surgery, I found out how the fibroids actually get their food supply and how it actually works, because the uterine artery embolization, what they did was they cut off the supply so that they couldn't feed. So they basically inserted some type of beads into those stems so that they can't get their supply of food, which means they can't grow, which means they're going to shrink. But they didn't get them all, because some of the fibroids, the stems were too small, and they couldn't put those beads in there because the vein itself was just too small for them to go in. So those fibroids didn't shrink. Now, all of them didn't shrink either, but they did shrink significantly, because I can see it in the size of my stomach, the way it had gone down. But as I said yesterday, they grew back, and then they grew back even stronger, because those tiny little ones that they couldn't get to, it was like a vengeance. It was almost as if, okay, well, fine, we couldn't get fed because of all of the bigger ones, but now those bigger ones are shrinking. We're going to wreak havoc up in here, and we're going to eat until our heart's content. And they just grew and grew and grew. But a lot of this, if I had known about certain foods, I wouldn't have contributed to my own fibroids growth. But because I didn't know, I still ate the wrong foods, and it contributed to it. One of the main things that cause fibroids to grow is estrogen levels. Now, certain meats like red meat and chicken have high estrogen levels, and the more of it you eat, the faster the fibroids grow. I wasn't a big red meat eater, but I did eat a lot of ground beef, and then, of course, pounds and pounds of chicken. And chicken is the absolute worst thing a woman who has fibroids can eat, because chicken, if it's not organic chicken or grass-fed chicken, it's full of hormones. And depending on where you buy your chicken and your your area, the area where you live, you might not have no choice. But then again, a lot of people are not really aware of what the hormones are actually doing to them. But if the chicken is fed the estrogen, if the beef is fed the estrogen, and then you eat it, then the estrogen goes directly into the fibroids, and then the fibroids grow. That's why women who are taking estrogen treatments or fertility treatments, trying, because they want to have a baby, but they also have fibroids, and those fibroids grow. The doctors didn't tell them that, but that was the cause of their fibroids growing. Those estrogen treatments like escalated that fibroid growth, because it's far more than you would get if you were taking estrogen, eating estrogen from your food. Okay, and another thing, bacon, sausage, egg yolks, pastries, cookies, anything sugary, refined sugary foods instantly contribute to fibroid growth. Dairy, like heavy creams and whole milk and butter, and anything caffeine, like if you drink a lot of coffee, that contributes to fibroid growth. Chocolate, even though they say chocolate is good for us because it helps with the menstrual flow, it gets it eases up the cramps. It also contributes to the growth of the fibroid because of the caffeine. Anything salty, super salty foods like the potato chips that we all love so much, and for me, if I had known, I don't know if I would have stopped with the cookies and with the sugar, with the icing, and all of that was contributing to it. White foods like flour, white rice, white bread, pasta, things like that. Though all of those things contribute to it. All of these things, and I didn't know this. And then on top of it, my doctor was telling me to um, make sure I eat a lot of leafy green vegetables. And I was into eating vegetables, but not at that time into the leafy greens. So I really went out and loaded up on all of the spinach and um, different types of leafy greens that I can think of, and didn't realize that I was eating the chemicals inside of the lettuce and the spinach and all that I was eating. So that I'm giving my body these chemicals that are not doing well for me. So I'm not shrinking a fibroid because of that. And I actually got worse because of those chemicals that I was ingesting into my body. So these are the things that if you have been diagnosed with fibroids, if you want to try and stop their growth and possibly even shrink them, you have to really look into that diet and do some serious research and look into the red meat, the chicken, and see for yourself the dangers of ingesting those hormones from those meats into your body, because they will contribute, because they contain that estrogen, and it's going to go straight into your bloodstream, and your fibroid is going to feed on it, and the fibroid is going to grow. Okay, also you could avoid stress, because stress actually contributes to it, to the fibroids growing too. And also the fibroids can cause you to have certain types of digestive problems. Your food won't digest the way it should, so you need to be careful with that. But the main thing to do is to avoid those foods that contribute to the fibroid growth. And in any occasion, if you already know this, but you're not eating organic fruits and vegetables, the first thing you need to do is switch that over to organic fruits and vegetables, because those chemicals that they spray on those foods, and even those foods are fed growth hormones. So what do you think is going to happen if you eat in those? Those go into your body, and the fibroid is going to feed off of that too. So they're going to grow even more. I unfortunately didn't have anybody to tell me this, and I didn't think that it was actually a contributing factor. I had heard a little here and there, but it wasn't enough research to really show me, and I really didn't know how to research it. So I'm telling you that this is the way you can do it. You can research this. Everything is on YouTube. Go online, ask.com, google.com. There's information all over the place where you can get information about what foods to avoid if you've been diagnosed with the fibroids. um, Stay away from those foods if you can at all costs. It's not going to hurt you. It's basically going to benefit you and perhaps slow the growth of those fibroids and maybe even have them shrink down, because if they don't have anything to feed on, they won't grow. And then maybe you won't have to have radical surgeries like some of us did, because I'm not completely buying into the fact that African American women are more susceptible to having being diagnosed with fibroids. I believe it's the foods that we eat that cause us to be diagnosed more frequently, not because we're African American, because our diets are definitely different in history. They're different, but if you think back, our grandparents didn't have all of these occurrences of fibroids, but now coming back into my generation, I can count. I don't even have enough fingers to count how many of my friends have actually been diagnosed with fibroids and had surgery to remove the fibroids. I don't have enough fingers on my hands to count. Probably don't even have enough toes to count how many of them. And then maybe out of those friends, maybe one may not have been diagnosed with fibroids. That's telling me something, because in my mother's generation, a lot of her friends did not have them. Okay, but she just happened to have them, and maybe one or two others, but a lot of them didn't. And in my grandmother's generation, rare. It was a very rare thing that they were diagnosed with these problems, because the food at that time wasn't being poisoned with all of the stuff that is being poisoned with now. So you go into my mother's generation, and then she didn't have a problem with her fibroids until later, well after she had us, and then all of a sudden she was having fibroids issues. And then now me here, I'm 25 years old and I'm diagnosed with fibroids and already having problems of it. So you see, there's like a pattern here where it's getting worse throughout the generation. So I can't even say what's going to happen for the people like my niece's age. What's going to happen? They have to become more aware of this and do the research and change that diet so that you could avoid having to have these radical surgeries that are really not necessary if you can just take the right precautions and eat the correct diet and possibly eliminate the fibroids. So that's it for today, and tomorrow we'll be talking about part 3, exercise and fibroids. Okay, so have a beautiful day and stay blessed and stay well. Bye bye.